Getting cooler. Yay!
We are done, so.
Gotta get it back together. Here, everything's ready. And hello, I am Mrs. SSP, and I'm going to be canning tomatoes. So I've got all of the things here prepared and set out for you today so that you can see what we're going to be doing. And these are our fresh tomatoes from our gardens. We're going to be using these. And
What kind of tomatoes are they?
I don't know what kind are.
They're brandywine and beefsteak.
Okay, brandywine and beefsteak tomatoes.
Varieties.
Okay, so I'm being edited by my husband as we speak. Okay, so come on over and I will show you how to prepare. Now I just want to cover what kind of canning we're doing today. You can do a water bath or pressure canning. With tomatoes, typically, because of the high acidity, you can use a water bath. So that's what we'll be doing today. So I have my water bath over here, and it's just sitting back here, warm water. I'm going to start that in a minute, so it'll be simmering and just kind of waiting on everything else. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the jars. And some people wash them individually with soap and water. I find it much easier just to put them all in the dishwasher and wash them all at once, and then they're good and ready to go. So that's where my cans are. So I'm going to go ahead and take those out, and then we'll start preparing what we need to do with the tomatoes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the water bath and get that going, just to heat up that water. And I'm going to go ahead and put some cans and lids and bands in here just to keep them kind of hot. And I always just do it this way. And I don't think you really need to put the bands in there, but I do. So just keeps everything kind of sterile. Okay, so that'll get us going. So I'm going to be making a tomato sauce with basil and garlic sauce. So what I'm going to be doing is, this is what I need. This is like just regular ball brand stuff that you can buy. The funnel, the holder for the quart jars. This is for measuring headspace as well as getting the air bubbles out of the jars. And for lifting, you know, the hot lids. Okay. So you want to figure out what kind of jars you're using. First of all, you can get the wide mouth jars that are a lot larger and easier to deal with, but I don't have any, so.
Oh, I got you the lids. I thought we had some of those.
No, well, we have a few, but not enough for this. So.
Okay.
So then here are the regular jars, regular mouth jars, and that's what we're going to be doing. And that's fine for what I want to do, really, because I'm not going to be quartering the tomatoes. I'm going to be really chopping them up a little bit more, so it'll be fine to be getting them in those jars. Okay, so this is the other ingredients we need. A couple onions from the garden, which I'm going to chop up. And it calls for like 4 cloves of garlic. These are kind of small, so I added another one. Then basil, and it called for fresh basil, but this is actually from our garden, so I'm going to use this and it'll be fine. Our basil, and then extra virgin olive oil, and then lemon juice is recommended. I don't remember why.
To maintain the color.
No, not that. they say not to use, it's better to use the store-bought lemon juice than it is to squeeze your own lemon juice. I'll have to look into that because I don't remember why that is.
Yeah, I'd be interested why that is.
But it, you know, they say that. So we were discussing lemons, whether to use lemon juice or bottled lemon juice, fresh lemon versus bottled. The only differences that I found were that the fresh lemons or limes or what have you would have a wide range of pH. And so that is why a lot of people suggest using the bottled lemon juice, because it has a fixed pH and you know the level of acidity that's... Okay, so anyway, you're moving on, and then we're going to use sea salt. There's actually, most things, I mean, call for the pickling salt, which you can get at the store, but I don't have any here, and I was looking into that last year, I remember. And the reason for the pickling salt is because you don't want additives in there that can cloud whatever you're making. I don't think it affects the storing of it. I mean, it stays good, but I think it causes it to be cloudy. So that's why they use the pickling salt as a preservative instead of just regular. This is sea salt, and it says it's 100% pure, no additives, so I think we'll be okay there. So I will check on that though and get back with you to let you know. So I didn't mention, I don't think, how much water I put in the water bath. So it is half full and at a simmer, and I put the lid on while we're waiting. So that's what we do with that. So right now I'm just preparing to blanch the tomatoes to make it easier to peel them and get the skin off. So first, let's just talk about our tomatoes. You want to have a firm tomato that is ripened and ready to eat, basically. You don't want one that isn't at its peak because it won't have as good of a taste. So anyway, just once you get all of those, and I think I've picked out some good ones, the next thing you want to do is go ahead and rinse some off, which I've done. And once you get that finished, you will drop them into some boiling water just to blanch them for around 30 to 60 seconds until the skin starts to crack. So that's what we're going to do next. And then as that happens, then I'm going to just take them out individually one at a time and place them in some cold water. So what do we have going on now?
Some corn and some tomatoes, a few more. I don't know, maybe another half dozen or a dozen tomatoes tomorrow.
Getting corn, yay! Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and blanch the tomatoes. And they're going to stay in for about 30 to 60 seconds until the skins start to crack. Just going to put a few in here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them out, put them in the cold water. You can see right here where the skin is cracking. Now once they're in the cold water, we'll just let them sit there for a second, and then we're going to go ahead and peel the skin back. And we will core them and cut them down. You can do halves, you can do quarters, but we're going to dice ours because I'm going to be doing the diced tomatoes. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and peel them. And we're going to do this to like 30 tomatoes, so I'm just going to give you a preview here of what's going on. And then I'll get the rest of them done and we'll talk later. Okay. So, and we're just going to core them, and if any bruising or anything that you see, you can take out as well. And like I said, I am going to cut them down a little further, but just for now, I'm gonna leave it at this. Okay, so now we're just getting ready to prepare the recipe. We're doing some diced garlic and basil sauce. This will be good for chili and things like that. So, what I'm going to do is kind of half the recipe because I don't have a big enough pan to kind of put everything in. So, I'm going to start by just doing about a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. And it's okay, I have a helper in the kitchen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the garlic in. Okay, so we're just going to saute the onion and garlic until that gets sort of translucent. So that's going to take a few minutes. Alright, so just to recap, we've got our onions and our garlic sauteing, and I have to dose the recipe so it's a little smaller just to make it a little more manageable in the kitchen. So we're going to go ahead and add our tomatoes now, and I did dice these to make this the way I wanted it. So I mean, you can do obviously whatever you want, quarter it or whatever. And if you want to stop with just a cold packing tomato, after you get done peeling them, you can just half them or quarter them, and that's all you would do. You put them into the jars and then pour the hot water over them to cold pack them. But we're going to move on and do a little something more with them here. The garlic and basil. Okay, so let's see. There we go. Let me go ahead and put some of these in. Just a little bit of the juice within here. It's okay. All right. Now we're going to let this simmer for like 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and see how things are looking. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add, it's been going simmering for about 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and add about a tablespoon of basil. I'm just going to kind of crumble that up. That in here. Maybe a little more, I like basil. Okay, so this looks really good. This basil and garlic tomato sauce. So we're going to go ahead and start looking at canning some of this. Alright, so I have just made sure and gone through and cleaned everything up. We've been making a little bit of a mess here, or I have. So I wanted to make sure everything was pretty sterile before getting started with the actual canning process. So I went and cleaned everything up really well, washed my hands again, just cleaned all the utensils and everything I'm using. Okay, so there's our first can. First thing we're going to do is take our lemon juice and shake that up. And we're going to put a tablespoon in the bottom of this jar. And actually this recipe does not call for any kind of salt. The one with just the straight tomatoes did, but this one doesn't, so I'm not going to be using the salt for this particular recipe. So our juice is in there. We're going to go ahead, put the funnel in, and just slowly, you might want to get as close as possible here. We're going to put this in and leave about a ½ inch of headspace at the top.
Can you explain to people what headspace is?
That's the space at the top that you want between your, whatever you're canning, the product and the top of the jar.
And that's to give everything room to expand, and then once the jars once the canning is done and they're cooling off, for them to retracting to create a bathroom, right?
Okay. So you can use smaller jars, pint size. This is a quart size jar. But whatever works for you. Almost to the end here. Okay, I'm going to put just a little more in. That's probably good. Okay, turn this down. All right, now once we have that in there, I'm going to take the funnel off, and then I'm going to go through with our measuring for the headspace on one side. It's also good for getting rid of bubbles. So we're going to go ahead and just sort of put this along the edges, and we've got some chunks of tomato in there, so this will probably help with any air trapped in there. So we're going to just go around a little bit. Even before you do anything around the lid, you want to make sure there are no food particles, nothing that's going to impede it from sticking to the actual lid. So I always wipe off the lid, make sure it's clean and clear, so it'll get a good seal. And then you can actually, I didn't do this, but we'll go ahead and measure our headspace. It's a little over 1/2 inch, but that's fine. Okay, now I'm going to just get down in here and get a lid. Now these aren't boiling because you don't want it to get too hot and then cause problems with the seal. All right, so here's the lid. Putting the lid on, just make sure it's sort of on there well.
Can you show everybody where that came from, where that lid came from? Because you may have...
Oh, it was in here. And I just make sure they're not boiling, and you can just pick one out.
Is that lid bent?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
And this is a band that's going to go around it. Some people put them in, some people don't. I just keep them all in there, keeping them kind of hot and everything. So then, once you get that lid on, I just press down with my finger once it's sort of affixed in the right place, and kind of gently put this on. Just tighten it just to your hand tightening there. And that's it. That one's ready to go in. So we're going to go ahead, take this one, and bring it over here. And it will sit here and wait on all of its little buddies. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and do some of the wide mouth jars. And they're pint size. They're a bit smaller, so I thought they might work out better. I had a few downstairs, so I went ahead and grabbed those and washed them up. So we're going to do a few more of these. So I'll go ahead and get this one ready. And really, it's nice if you have the time. It does take a lot of time to make large batches so that you can get it all done at once. Sometimes when you've got a lot going on, it just doesn't work out that you have that kind of time. But do what we can here. Okay. I'm going to put a little more in there. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and check for bubbles. Oop, that was hot. And the reason you want to have your jars hot is because anytime you're canning, obviously you're going to be working with hot liquid. And if you just take a cold jar and pour hot liquid in it, obviously that can be a bad idea. So you can have some breakage and things. So you always want to make sure that your jars are hot too. Okay, and we've got about 1/2 inch headspace, so that's good. Just going to go ahead and position the lid on. sort of, you know, open it up a little more and readjust it. Just try to keep that lid on there so it has a tight seal. Okay, in it goes. Now with your water bath, once you get everything in there, you want to make sure that you have at least 1 to 2 inches of water over your jars. So you want to get good coverage of your jars. And if there's not enough there, you can just add some hot water. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to, once everything is in there, put it on for just a boil. So it's a consistent boiling for about 35 minutes, and then we'll be all done. So then we can turn it off and let it sit and cool for a few minutes before you transfer it out of the pot. You know, I was a little bit unsure of myself and whether I wanted to try all of this canning and starting all this. I grew up with my mom canning, and it was just a normal everyday thing, but I'd never actually done it myself. And it especially can be a little bit worrisome, I guess, with the pressure canner. You just want to make sure you do everything right. So, and it was great. The first time I did it, I just tried cold packing with green beans, and it worked out really well. And just kind of looking online, following the instructions of people who've done it for years. And Ball is a great fresh preserving. You can go on there and check things out, and it's really a great place to get some good advice. Okay, so this is our last one we're doing now. Just gonna check for air bubbles again. Sounds like our water's getting nice and hot. We've got about a ½ inch headspace in there, so that's good. Just going to remember to wipe the top. I think I forgot that step last time. And usually it's not a problem, but you know, you just want to make sure that that's clean and there's no problem with the seal there. Going. Okay. It's going in. All right, I'm going to add a little more water because of my quart-sized jars. I think I need it, so I'm going to do that, and then we'll cover it and give it about 35 minutes. Okay, so we're all done for 35 minutes. Just going to take the lid off and let these cool for a while in the pot, and then we'll transfer them over here and let them sit up here for about 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours. Okay. We are back, and it's been about 12 hours. So I let these sit overnight, and now we have our basil garlic tomato sauce all ready. So one thing I wanted to show you, some things we need to check to make sure they got a good seal. I have a quart jar here that is empty, but with a lid on it that has not been vacuumed, not been sealed. So basically, you're checking that this is not going to pop or make any noise, because you know, that would be bad. If this isn't sealed good, then it's going to make a noise, okay? Or if it doesn't look right or something looks wrong with it, then you just need to check it. So take off the rings, the bands. So you're going to look at that and make sure it looks good. And then your next way to check would be just to lift it by the band, and that's showing that you have a good seal.
By the lid, right?
No. Yeah, I'm sorry, the band, or the lid. Okay, so anyway, that one looks good. So what we're gonna do now is we will label these, and I just use a permanent marker on the lid to make sure I know, what I have here. And these are not reusable, so that doesn't matter. You can just, when you're done, you'll just throw the lids away and get some new ones for next time that you can save in advance. So this is just my way of canning, and I'm still fairly new at it, so I'm sure I'll get some pointers from all of you watchers out there, which is fine. But just wanted to share what I was doing. So thanks for watching, and what do you say? Like it? Yeah. Thanks, bye. Okay, now we're going to discuss the two different types of canning. I know we just reviewed those quickly when I was going over things in the kitchen, but there is water bath canning versus the pressure cooking, or canning, pressure canning. So the difference being that things that are highly acidic can be used with the water bath canner, which is this one. And actually this is not a canner, it is just a stock pot that I can use for water bath canning. The only difference is there is no rack in the bottom, so you need to have a cake rack or something that you can put down in there so that the jars aren't touching the very bottom of the can or pot. If you don't have a cake...
Why is that?
If you don't have that, you don't want them touching, I would assume, because it's glass, and you wouldn't want them to get that hot and heat up and break quickly. Okay, so if you don't have that, there's a method where you can sort of tie these together and place them in the bottom in a way that your jars can sit on top of there. So that's your water bath for high acidic foods. The pressure canner is for foods that are not as highly acidic, and this is my pressure canner, and it holds quart jars. Doesn't look like it would, but when you have the lid, it has sort of an indentation in there that you can set them in there, and it fits nicely. So, so the difference here is the amount, the temperature that you can reach, and the problem with, depending on the type of food you're using, you want to use the pressure canner with meats and vegetables, things that might need a higher temperature, because you want them to reach at least 240 degrees to kill any foodborne, any kind of bacteria in there. So that is why we know that with the pressure canner you can reach that temperature. So that's why we do that. So high acidic foods, water bath; low acidic, pressure canning. And if you have a mixture there of low and high, you always want to use the pressure canner to be safe in your recipe if you're using anything like that. So, okay, that's it.